The pen felt unnaturally heavy in my hand, and as I stared at the paper in front of me, the neat words and cold legal jargon blurred together for a brief moment. I blinked and refocused on the bold title at the top, Prenuptial Agreement. Cole, my fiancé of 3 years, sat across from me, tapping his fingers rhythmically on the polished wood. His expression was calm, almost too calm. "It's just a precaution, Avery," he said, his voice smooth. "You get that, right? Just in case. Just in case." I forced a smile, even though my stomach twisted in knots. "Sure," I replied, my voice as steady as I could make it. "Just a backup plan." A backup plan for what exactly? We'd been together for 7 years, through college, through those first few broke years in our tiny apartment, and through the years of building a life together. And now, on the brink of our future, he was asking me to sign this. This document that made it clear he was already planning for a life without me. I picked up the pen, my heartbeat quickening. "Don't let emotions take over. Be smart." I signed. He exhaled in relief, then reached for my hand. "Thank you, baby. I knew you'd get it." I smiled back, but inside, I was seething. What Cole didn't know was that I had already uncovered his secret savings account. It had all started 2 weeks ago. I had never snooped around in his finances before. Why would I? We'd always been transparent with each other. He had access to my accounts, my salary, my investments. We were supposed to be a team. But that day, as I searched for an email on his laptop, a notification popped up, a bank statement for an account I didn't recognize. I knew I shouldn't have clicked on it. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but something inside me, instinct maybe, compelled me to do it. That's when I saw it. $150,000 in an account under only his name. My breath caught in my throat. This money wasn't from his paycheck. This wasn't part of our joint savings. This money was hidden, a backup plan. For what? For who? The next few days, I tried to push it out of my mind. I wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe it was for a surprise honeymoon. Maybe he was saving for some big purchase. But when I casually asked him about our savings, he brushed it off dismissively. "You handle the money, babe. I don't even look at that stuff." He looked me in the eye and lied, and that's when I realized Cole wasn't just planning for our future, he was planning for a future without me. Then, last night, the bombshell. "Avery, I need you to sign a prenup. Just something simple." Simple, just like that. He confirmed all my worst suspicions. Now, as I sat across from him, the ink on the prenup barely dry, I forced myself to stay calm. He had his backup plan. Fine. I would make sure he needed it. The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan. Cole thought he had everything in control. He thought the prenup had locked me out of any financial security. But what he didn't realize was that he had just handed me the blueprint for my escape, and I wasn't going to let it go to waste. I sat in my car, parked outside the law office, clutching my coffee like it was a lifeline. The manila folder on the passenger seat held everything: a copy of the prenup, bank statements, and screenshots of Cole's secret savings account. I wasn't sure what I wanted just yet. Revenge? A way out? The truth? All I knew was that I needed answers. The receptionist led me to a sleek, modern office where my lawyer, Mr. Brock, was already waiting. In his late 50s, sharp eyes, he was the kind of man who had seen every possible way a relationship could fall apart. I slid the prenup across the desk. "I need you to explain exactly what this means for me." He skimmed through the document quickly, flipping through the pages with practiced ease. After a few moments, he leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against the contract. "Well," he began, "Avery." He locked eyes with me. "Are you sure he's the only one with a backup plan?" My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" He smirked slightly. "Your fiancé made one critical mistake. He wrote this up himself. Or at least, he drafted it without the expertise of someone who really knows what they're doing. That's what happens when men think they're smarter than they are." He flipped to a specific section and tapped it with his pen. "This contract is heavily skewed in his favor," Brock said. "Yes, if you divorce, you walk away with only what's in your personal bank account. No access to his assets. Nothing." I swallowed hard. I knew that part already. But Brock kept going. He forgot to protect his hidden savings. I blinked, confused. What? Look here! He pointed to a section on separate assets. In a truly airtight prenup, he would have disclosed all his accounts and properties up front. That's standard. But in this case, Cole only listed the joint assets and his primary checking account. The realization hit me like a freight train. He hadn't disclosed the hidden account, which meant, legally. Brock grinned. If that money was earned during your relationship and it isn't protected under the prenup, then guess what? I sucked in a breath. It's fair game? He nodded. I left the office with my heart racing. My fingers itched to pick up my phone and call Cole, to confront him and expose his lies. But I didn't. Because Cole had played the long game, and now, so would I. That night, I cooked dinner as if everything were normal. A warm, home-cooked meal, just the way he liked it. I kissed him on the cheek when he walked in. I smiled at his jokes. I played the role of the loving, clueless fiancé, but inside, I was calculating, observing, and waiting. How many other secrets had he kept from me? Because men like Cole don't just make one backup plan, they craft several. If I was going to make sure he needed that hidden savings account, I needed to understand exactly how deep his lies went. The next day, I began sifting through old bank statements, emails, and the fragments of our life together that had started to feel increasingly fractured. The more I dug, the worse it got. It began with small discrepancies, some deposits that didn't match his paycheck, some expenses that didn't add up. At first, I thought maybe he was just bad with money, maybe I was overreacting. But then I uncovered the emails, and that's when everything changed. Cole wasn't planning for a future without me. He was planning for one with someone else. It was a Saturday morning when I finally found it. Cole had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he took a shower. I had told myself I wouldn't snoop, that I'd already uncovered enough, but as I walked past and saw his inbox open, one subject line stopped me in my tracks. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. I froze. The sender's name was Mia. I had never heard of her. I clicked, my hands shaking. The message was brief, too casual, too intimate. Hey babe, I can't stop thinking about last weekend. I know we said we'd keep things slow, but it's getting harder to wait. The reply from Cole sat just below. Me too, gorgeous. Just be patient a little longer. Things are almost in place. My stomach turned. My mind buzzed with static as I scrolled further. My breath caught with every new discovery. Hotel bookings under his name, dinner reservations for nights he'd told me he was working late, payments to a jewelry store. I felt nauseous. Cole wasn't just saving money to protect himself. He was preparing to replace me. The next few hours passed in a blur. I went through every account, every statement, every digital trace he had left behind. And what I found froze me to the core. The secret savings account wasn't just for him. He was funneling money to her. The prenup wasn't merely a precaution. It was a guarantee that I would walk away with nothing, the engagement ring on my finger, probably just a placeholder until he could make his exit, and the biggest betrayal of all? A lease agreement for a condo signed by Cole, for Mia. He had planned everything, the wedding, the honeymoon, the fake future with me, each piece designed to buy him time before he could leave me behind. That night, I lay next to him in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I had given this man 7 years of my trust, my love, my everything. And in return, he had been plotting an escape route. I could have confronted him right then, could have thrown my ring at him, screamed, demanded answers. But I knew that would give him control of the situation. If Cole thought he was going to walk away from this unscathed, he was sorely mistaken. Because now, I wasn't just going to make sure he needed that secret account. I was going to make sure it was the only thing he had left. Cole thought he had everything under control. He thought I was oblivious, that I'd continue planning our wedding while he plotted his escape, that I'd never question the prenup or uncover his hidden life. He was wrong, and now I was going to make sure he regretted ever underestimating me. The next week, I did something I never imagined I'd do. I pretended. I played the role perfectly, devoted, eager fiancé, overjoyed about the wedding. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings, laughed at his jokes, and let him believe I was still completely in the dark. But the moment he left for work, I sprang into action. First, I met with a forensic accountant that my lawyer had recommended. I handed over all the bank statements, the details of the hidden account, and the evidence I'd uncovered about Cole's payments to Mia. "Can you trace where this money is going?" I asked. The accountant nodded. "Absolutely. If he's been moving assets around to prepare for leaving you, we'll find it." Cole thought he was covering his tracks, but what he didn't know was that I was already one step ahead. Next, I visited Mia's new condo. I wasn't reckless. I didn't go inside or knock on the door. Instead, I waited outside. Sure enough, she arrived. She was exactly what I expected, pretty, young, and naive, the kind of woman who believed in sweet talk and stolen glances, the kind who thought that the man cheating on his fiancé would never do the same to her. She walked inside, oblivious to everything, and I smiled. If she thought she'd won, she hadn't seen anything yet. That night, I set my trap. After dinner, I poured Cole a glass of wine, his favorite. I let him relax, unwind, and then casually said, "I was thinking maybe we should move some of our savings into a joint account, to prepare for the wedding." I watched his reaction carefully. His grip tightened around the glass for just a moment, a brief flicker of hesitation in his eyes. But he recovered quickly. "That's sweet, babe," he said smoothly. "But let's keep things the way they are, just in case." Just in case. I tilted my head, pretending to be curious. "In case of what?" He smiled. Oh, that same smile that had once made me trust him. Life happens. Life happens. I fought the urge to laugh in his face. He thought he was lying to me, but in reality, he had just confirmed everything I needed to know. I called my lawyer. "Proceed with everything," I said, my voice steady. "Are you sure?" he asked. I had never been more certain in my life. Cole didn't just betray me. He meticulously prepared for it, and now I was preparing as well. He had no idea that while he was sneaking around with Mia, plotting to leave me with nothing, I was already working behind the scenes. Soon, the backup plan he thought was foolproof would become all he had left. The day everything began to unravel for him started like any other. Cole kissed me on the cheek before heading to work, completely oblivious that by sunset, his world would be in ruins. I waited until the door clicked shut, counted to 10, and then reached for my phone. "First call, my lawyer," I said calmly. He didn't need further instructions. We had already set everything into motion. At noon, I walked into our bank. The teller greeted me warmly, as she always did. After all, I had managed our finances for years. "How can I help you today?" she asked with a smile. I slid a document across the counter. "I need to make some changes to our accounts." She glanced at the paperwork, her smile faltering as recognition dawned on her. She understood exactly what was happening. Divorce proceedings, asset division. Cole wouldn't know it yet, but as of that moment, our joint accounts were frozen. He wouldn't be able to move a single cent, not to Mia, not to his secret stash, nowhere. I smiled politely. "And while we're at it, I'd like to remove Cole Harrison as an authorized user on our credit cards." Step 2. The lease for Mia's condo. My lawyer had already filed an official inquiry regarding Cole's finances, including his undisclosed payments to her apartment. But that wasn't the only nail in his coffin. Cole had been using company funds for their getaways, disguising them as business expenses. Corporate fraud, illegal, traceable. And now it was all reported. By the time Cole realized what was happening, I was already one step ahead. At precisely 3:45 p.m., I got the call. My forensic accountant's voice was practically dripping with satisfaction. "We found it," he said. "The money. Cole wasn't just saving for himself. He had been funneling company funds into that secret account, passing them off as business expenses. It's illegal, and it's traceable, and it's been reported." By the time Cole walked through the door that evening, I had already packed my things. I sat in the living room, sipping wine, calm as could be, while he walked in, briefcase in hand, completely unaware that his life was about to come crashing down. He smiled at me as though everything was perfectly normal. "Hey, babe," he greeted me. I set my glass down. "Hey, Cole, how was work?" The moment he dropped his keys on the counter, his phone buzzed. Once, twice, Then again, I watched his face as he pulled it out, reading the messages. The first was from his bank. Your account has been frozen due to an official investigation. Please contact customer service. The second was from his employer. Please report to HR immediately regarding financial discrepancies. Failure to respond will result in immediate termination. The third, from Mia. Cole, what the hell is going on? I just got a notice that the lease isn't getting paid. You said you had it covered, call me now. I watched as the color drained from his face. Slowly, he looked up at me. Avery? I smiled. Sweet, fake, the same smile he had given me so many times. Something wrong? His throat worked as he swallowed. What did you do? I tilted my head. Me? Oh, nothing much. I stood, grabbed my overnight bag, and walked toward the door. You know, Cole, I said, pausing with my hand on the handle, I used to wonder why you needed a backup plan. I turned to look at him, his face twisted in shock and pure panic. And now, I guess I finally understand. I stepped outside, closing the door softly behind me, leaving him alone in the house we once shared, with nothing but the wreckage of his own making. Cole had spent years preparing for a life without me, but now he was truly alone, his career ruined, his money gone, and his future with Mia slipping through his fingers. As for me? I was on the brink of the best chapter of my life. I thought Cole would try to reach out, beg for a chance to explain, but instead, he did what all cowards do. He ran. In the days that followed, everything unraveled for him. His bank accounts were frozen. His job was gone. His reputation was in tatters. I didn't need to hear it from him. I heard about it through everyone else. His company didn't just fire him. They pressed charges. The forensic audit revealed thousands in stolen funds, the very money he had been hiding in his secret account. Mia? She bailed the moment she realized Cole was broke. She didn't even wait for him to explain. One moment, she was his future, and the next, she blocked his number. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office when he handed me the final piece of Cole's downfall. The lawsuit is official, Brock said, sliding a document across the table. His former employer is demanding full restitution. I raised an eyebrow. How much? $150,000. I laughed softly. Cole's backup plan? It wasn't just all he had left. It wasn't even his anymore. The court seized the entire account to pay back his debt. All his scheming, all his lies, had led him straight to financial ruin. And me? I was free. I moved into my new apartment that weekend, a place I chose, a place I paid for. No traces of Cole, no reminders of betrayal. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I felt lighter. No more pretending, no more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just me, my future, and a clean slate. A month later, I ran into Cole's sister. She studied me carefully before speaking. You know, she said, he told us you just up and left, that you abandoned him in his worst moment. I snorted. Of course he did. She hesitated, then sighed. But then we found out what he did. The secret account, Mia. I stayed silent. She shook her head. Almost pinged. He's living with our parents now, no job, no savings. Mom and Dad aren't happy about it, but he's their son, I finished for her. She nodded. I smiled, feeling something unexpected, indifference. Cole wasn't my problem anymore, and the best part was he'd done it to himself. That night, as I curled up with a book and a glass of wine, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I didn't need to check the caller ID. I already knew who it was. Cole. I let it ring. Then I blocked the number. The past belonged in the past, and I was already living the best revenge, a life without him.